Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about how we have some new additional strong hints for the Nintendo Switch 2 launching very soon. So a few weeks ago, I had this theory that the Switch 2 could be launching as soon as May 15th, and we'll be touching a little bit on that today, but the latest information we've gotten from a few different places is seemingly supporting this idea, or is at least helping to suggest a window around that time, which is pretty soon from now, which to me is pretty exciting. However, some of this news is also disappointing to some people for what it means moving forward on Switch 1, and we'll be touching on that as well. But before going forward here, let me take this moment to point out that I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit that notification bell. So let's first dive into some of the news that has some people disappointed, but also might mean a little bit of a good thing in terms of when we see Switch 2. Discontinuation of earning my Nintendo Gold Points. This is literally from the Nintendo support page here, and this is what is said. As of 9:30 p.m. PDT on March 24th, 2025, it will no longer be possible to earn My Nintendo Gold Points when purchasing digital content. Gold Points will still be earned after that time in the following scenarios. When you have pre-ordered digital content before 9:30 p.m. on March 24th, any pre-orders for digital content made before on March 24th will earn Gold Points, even if the payment will be processed later. Gold Points for these pre-orders will be awarded by the day after the payment is processed, so as long as you make a pre-order for a game before March 24th, you're still good on Gold Points for that digital purchase. However, they also talk about physical purchases. When you purchase a physical version of a game released on or before March 24th. So as long as it's before March 25th, you're still good when it comes to physical games. As it reads on, physical versions of games that are released on or before March 24th are still eligible to earn Gold Points, even if the game is purchased after March 24th. Note that Gold Points can only be earned for physical games within 1 year of the game's original release date, and physical versions of games released after March 24th will not qualify for Gold Points. And so basically what's going on here is that Nintendo's clearly phasing out the Gold Points program. There will still be some ways to earn Gold Points after March 24th, but essentially if you haven't made the purchase before this time, it's going to be very hard to do so. And I'm sure people are going to be disappointed by this because Gold Points allow you to save money. It allows you to save about 5%, or rather, you can get 5% back to use for future purchases, and there were times where you could earn double, so you could save up to 10%. And so reducing on how much people can save on your Switch 1 purchases, I'm sure is going to be disappointing for many, but when we take into consideration the Switch has been around for nearly 8 years, and by the time this happens, it will have been over 8 years, I think that's a long run of things here. And I do think it is highly suggestive that Nintendo is going to be putting together a new program on Switch 2 pretty soon. I don't really envision Nintendo going a long period of time without having some sort of savings program. I think it's interesting to note that March 24th is just a few days after the release for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, the last big Switch game with an exact release date, and then April 2nd, the big Switch 2 Nintendo Direct date is just about a week later, and that's where we're going to learn everything about Switch 2, perhaps even about the next sort of savings program on the console. And so it really just looks like a lot of things are in motion here for Switch 2 to come out very soon. I do think it is a strong point of evidence to suggest that we're not waiting until the end of the year for Switch 2 to come out, but rather relatively soon, or else we wouldn't be seeing the phase out so early on in the year. They would have waited longer. And another interesting point that I think is worth making here is that they talk about how physical versions of games released after March 24th will not qualify for Gold Points. In other words, games that are coming to Switch 1 like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and Pokemon Legends ZA, they will not be applicable to this Gold Points program. That is, unless they are opened up for pre-order on the eShop beforehand. They haven't yet, so it's hard to say. We still have about a month before this happens. If there's a direct where they announce these things or a presentation, then it's okay. but it hasn't happened yet, so I am wondering what this might suggest. I have been theorizing that both Prime 4 and Legends EA, while there will be Switch 1 versions, are also going to have Switch 2 versions because they want to future-proof these games and ensure maximized sales here, because sales, including software sales, have been trending downwards year by year on Nintendo Switch 1, so it makes the most sense to maximize sales potential for these big games here, and so yeah, you want to prioritize Switch 2. So this might be an additional indication that these games are going to see more support on Switch 2 as opposed to Switch 1. Of course, March 24th hasn't come yet. If there's a Direct or a Pokemon Presents where they open them up for pre-order, they can still be put up for pre-order. And of course, even if they are put up for pre-order, they could still have enhanced versions on Switch 2. Both things can be true. But there's more going on here. So, another Nintendo program that appears to be phasing out is the Voucher program. This is a program where you can pay for the Voucher program $100 American, and this will allow you to get 2 different Nintendo games in the Voucher program, which could allow you to save $20 to $30 USD. I remember when I bought Pikmin 4 and Tears of the Kingdom with the Voucher program, I saved a decent amount of money there. That was pretty nice. And then of course, I also got gold points back as well, 5% back, so there was certainly some savings to be had there. I saved $30 with my initial purchase, and then thanks to the gold coins, I get 5% back so I can save on future purchases. But that voucher program is also going away. As they also say here on the Nintendo support page, the Nintendo Switch game vouchers cannot be redeemed for games exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2 system. So there may still be some game vouchers for games coming to Switch 1, but this doesn't look like a program that's going to be transferring over to Switch 2, or else they probably would have not said this. And so it looks like Nintendo's going to be putting together an entirely different system for the Switch 2, and given that we're seeing these announcements now, or this information now, before any sort of directs or presentations, I think it is suggestive that there's going to be some sort of announcements relatively soon on the matter. Maybe not everything will be in place, it's not like we've always had the voucher program, for example, but they are clearly setting things up for the next generation, and I would say very soon. But both the phasing out of Nintendo's gold points and the Switch game vouchers isn't necessarily indicative of an exact time or even a particular month. It just kind of says, okay, well, they are phasing things out, and that's just another suggestion that things are happening soon, but it's kind of vague. Well, here's something that isn't maybe that vague. Fantasy Life is coming out on May 21st. It's finally been confirmed. This game that's been delayed repeatedly over the last few years has a set release date for May 21st, 2025. And some of you might be wondering, why is this relevant to Switch 2? Well, a lot of people have been theorizing that one of the reasons why Fantasy Life has been continuously delayed is because they have been saving this game to come out in the Switch 2 release window. There was this graphic they put together a while back for a Fantasy Life presentation, where they said they were planning to have a worldwide simultaneous release, and many thought they may have been theorizing that it had more to do with just Nintendo Switch. They were being very coy with their marketing and advertising, and it's coming out for other platforms, sure, but many think it's also coming out on Switch 2, and that may be why it's coming out finally on May 21st. Now, May 21st is probably not going to be the launch date for the Nintendo Switch 2, because that date falls on a Wednesday. Nintendo doesn't launch things on Wednesdays. As of late, it's been Thursdays, which is partially why I've been theorizing that we may see the Switch 2 launch on May 15th. But there's another date that a lot of people have been considering, and that's May 22nd. A lot of people have been attaching themselves to the idea that there might be sort of like this connection with several 2s being there. I think that's just a random coincidence, but some people want to think that there might be something to that idea. But to me, what's most fascinating about this release date for Fantasy Life is that it's an interesting period of time for this game to finally be coming out, considering that it has been widely speculated to be saved for Switch 2 all this time. Because there are also other things that seem to be happening around this time. So, the Switch 2 Experience events are ending shortly before this period of time. Well, to be more specific, all the Experience events in North America and Europe will be ending by this time, and then there's going to be a break in events until they start happening in Asia a little bit later. So we have this window in May where there are no Experience events, which is very similar to what happened with Switch 1, where the Switch 1 events ended, and then Switch 1 came out immediately afterwards. And also, Doom Dark Ages, a Microsoft-published title, is releasing on May 15th. And what's extra curious about this title, perhaps way more so than Fantasy Life, is that Xbox doesn't publish games on Thursdays most of the time. All their games as of late have been releasing far earlier into the week, Mondays and Tuesdays, so Thursday is a very surprising period of time, but it might be the case that they are saving this game to be a launch title for the Switch 2 on May 15th. And so there's a lot of other details regarding why I think the Switch 2 could be coming out on May 15th. I have a whole other video dedicated to that, so you can check that out later. But what's most interesting about what's going on right now is that we're seeing certain games that many people believe could be coming to Switch 2, all sort of seemingly being positioned to come out in a very peculiar period of time. And now we have other things that are suggesting that Nintendo is indeed preparing to launch their console, not just sometime this year, but fairly early on into this year, which is why we're seeing that they are now transitioning over away from the voucher program, away from the Gold Points program. It's probably why we're having the big Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd. It's probably why the Switch 2 Experience events are ending so oddly, at least most of the presentations, in the middle of May. And maybe also why PAX East is happening so late into the year this time around, right after the Switch 2 Experience events end. Perhaps because they're planning to have a very quick turnaround the same way they handled things with Switch 1 back in early 2017. Which, to be exact, the last Switch 1 Experience event ended in Los Angeles, an event taking place between March 3rd and the 5th, and Switch 1 came out on March 3rd. And so looking at the events we have for Switch 2, this window of time, these events end at the beginning of the week, so I'm not expecting it to line up exactly then, but looking at the Thursday, perhaps May 15th, or maybe May 22nd, or even May 29th. So it's not necessarily the case that I think things are lining up for the Switch 2 to happen exactly on the 15th, although that is my pick. It could also be somewhere within these few weeks here, and maybe Doom Dark Ages isn't actually a launch title, but maybe it comes out shortly afterwards on Switch 2. But it being published on a Thursday, the typical Nintendo day, I still find to be very curious. But what do you all think on these matters? Do you think these things that are going on right now help to support the idea, in conjunction with other things we've discussed in the past, that Switch 2 is likely coming out very soon, perhaps in the month of May? And what do you also make of Nintendo going away from these programs that helped us to save money on Switch 1? Is it really not that big of a deal because things are finally ending with Switch 1 and we're moving on to Switch 2 and we'll likely get some way to save money on Switch 2? Or should Nintendo have kept these programs around for a few years longer while Switch 1s are still selling? Let me know what you all think in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.